Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I am so pleased to have longtime friend and associate Barbara Kenyon back. Hey, Barbara.
Hey, Laurie, thanks so much for having me on your show once again.
I have to tell you, Barbara, we're going to talk about her vast expanse in career. Barbara is a grief counselor. She's also a dating counselor, which seems like, hey, both ends of the spectrum. But you know what? Barbara has made that work, and we're going to talk about how she did that. But first of all, Barbara, just tell us what you've been up to.
Where do I begin?
I
Well,
know.
I just returned from my honeymoon and I remarried after having been widowed twice. And I love sharing my story because, if nothing else, it gives women who have been in my situation hope at any age to be able to find true love again. So that's what I've been. I haven't totally even unpacked from my honeymoon, but I'm so looking forward to talking with you and sharing some of my tips about how.
Absolutely, because I know the last show that we had with you, we were kind of talking about the grieving process, and I too share the unfortunate, I guess, situation where I've been widowed twice too. And it's like, it's so easy to just go, you know what? I give up. That's it. I've had it now. But I didn't, and you didn't. And we were just talking about the Golden Bachelor, which I haven't seen. But Barbara, what is your concept of that? Because you said you've seen snippets of it. And when you mentioned hope, it's like, yeah, yeah. And I think people are realizing you're really never too old, you know?
Exactly. I didn't watch the whole thing. In fact, I didn't watch any of the full series, but I did catch it on YouTube, and I was really intrigued by the concept. The storyline was a gentleman who's 72 years old, had been widowed 4 years ago, and wanted to find true love again. He was matched on this show with, I don't know, 20 plus women, and they were all in their 60s and 70s. Um, and throughout the process, 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long it ran, he eliminated one by one. He was a really nice guy from my perception. He was pretty sensitive and listening really carefully to what all of these women had to say. And it pretty much depicted the women's journey as well as this gentleman's, from maybe being a little bit freaked out with the idea of dating again to ultimately he picked out one. And the series ended maybe 2 weeks ago, and he revealed who, or maybe even a week ago, I'm not sure, revealed which one he selected. And their wedding is going live in January.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he
Okay.
proposed to her. And the interesting take for me was that they both figured, they're both, she's 70, he's 72, is if they believe that they are the right pairing, why drag this thing out and just get married and move forward, because he has more days behind him than he does ahead of him. And
Love it.
and they seem to me like a pretty compatible pair as far as what they revealed on television.
Every
And
time I saw the promos, if you wonder, like, do you get old and jaded? Everybody's crying. Everybody's very emotional, and it's just, they got their heart into it, and it's like hoping and wishing. And I liked that part. It was like I knew that everybody except one was going to be disappointed, but it was like, yeah, and you keep. Someone said to me the other day, we're at the age where we're invisible, and it's like, no, I'm not going to be invisible, and I do have feelings, and I do want stuff, and this really brought it to the forefront. I bet you we have not seen the last of the Golden Bachelor. I really think it was a big hit all across the United States. I don't know about international, but yeah.
absolutely. And I think the takeaway for these women was a feeling of confidence that they hadn't had before. And you mentioned the word invisible, Lori. And I don't think of that as my vocabulary because it's just not how I'm wired. But I do hear other women say that a lot. They say, men in their 70s are not interested in women in their 70s. They're more interested in women in their 50s. So you have to go really like find a guy in their 90s who may find somebody more attractive in their 70s. I don't buy that myself. It certainly wasn't the case for me.
Mhm.
But, I guess that it all boils down to the first step of my 7-step process of finding true love again. And that is to get great clarity about what you want for your life and how to go about getting that. And maybe doing a little bit of self-talk, not maybe, doing a lot of self-talk and getting rid of that idea of invisibility, because visibility, is that a word? Invisible, whatever. I made it a noun.
It's a
Getting
good
rid of
word.
that concept, because I mean, if you believe it to be true, it will be in your head for sure.
Absolutely. And that's what we all want to know. We want to know, how did you get, because you were widowed and to a great guy. You guys have a book out and we'll talk about, later about coaching and everything. But and then how did you take that first step? And did you use your grieving process to get to where you were in the dating process? Is it a natural flow?
For me, it definitely was. I I think I'll just sort of set that stage if I may. I was widowed the first time when I was 35 years old. I had been married for 9 years, and my husband died from pancreatic cancer when our first child was just an infant.
Mm.
Um, I remarried 5 years later, and I wasn't a dating coach as such back then. I evolved into that, but I knew how to go after what you want in life. I guess I again wired that way. My mother was a big proponent of that, and it was just my natural personality to go after what I wanted. I knew that I did not want to be a single parent and raise my child alone, and I loved being married, and I loved having somebody to love and somebody to love me. So I just sort of randomly did a process of going through the grief process, definitely, and learning how to find closure with my husband's death, not for ever forgetting about him, certainly not, but definitely being able to move forward. And then I remarried, married Alan Kenyon, and we were together for 33 years. He passed away suddenly, unexpectedly. And after a period of time, I just knew again, I wasn't a single mom anymore. My children were raised, but I loved sharing my life with somebody. So after a while, I decided to go on one of the internet dating sites. I know a lot about those. As I said, I've been doing dating coaching, helping widows, singles, divorced for 30 years. So I followed my own process and went on a site. And right out of the gate, I found a gentleman that the way he described himself really spoke to me. In fact, I just made a little copy of it because I was going to write down. It was the words that were important to me. He wrote down that he said, "I'm an active, young at heart, easygoing, humor-filled, nature-loving, thoughtful, sensitive, affectionate, well-educated man, looking for somebody to share the beauty of life and relationship with." And I thought, well, that spoke to me.
Yeah, it speaks to
I,
me.
exactly.
Take it. I realize. Yeah.
It speaks to most people. I mean, those are adjectives that we love hearing typically. He was exactly my age, and he looked pretty cute, like the look of him. And the other thing is that I'm into this whole holistic way of life with meditation and all the other things that go along with that. And he said he was a holistic family physician. And oh my goodness. And with meditation, he also likes to play bridge. I'm a big bridge player. And I thought, I'm going after this dude. So I did. I reached out to him and he responded, said that he lives 3 hours away from me, north in Florida, but he also has a beach house in Uruguay. And that's where he was and what will be for the next 2 months. So I said, how about a Zoom call? He said, sure. So I arranged that. Our first Zoom call lasted 4.5 hours.
Oh,
And and as you may know, Laura, when you meet somebody and you just click in that way, it was
no.
just like a ping pong ball, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we really sensed something. He had been widowed also. He had been widowed for 4 years. And we continued. I said, "You want another Zoom call?" He says, "Yes." So did I. And the following Zoom call, a couple of days later, was over 5 hours. We continued. I mean, my married friends have been married for 50 years. They said, "What the heck did you talk about?" I don't think I've talked to my husband in a whole year for that many hours. But when it's new and it's exciting and you have so many things in common, it was just the flow was natural
Yeah.
and easy. And by the way, this is my new toy. I don't know if you can see this. You push it,
Easy. The
push it.
Staples button, right? Yeah.
That
I
was
love
easy.
it.
I'm driving Jim nuts with that button. But I always say that's one way of knowing whether the relationship's right. If it's easy, if there's a natural
Yeah.
flow. So we continued the full 2 months that he was in Uruguay with these Zoom calls. And I took a lot of notes because I thought that could be the title of my next book if this relationship were to go somewhere. In total, we had 35 Zoom calls, 109 hours, a lot of detail there, but 109 hours of chatting.
Wow.
And I could not wait to meet him in person. But to tell you the truth, even the dating coach, widowsdatingcoach.com, that's my website. Even the Widows Dating Coach was nervous about meeting him in person after we had shared 109 hours of conversation.
Yeah, but that, I think in retrospect, that's part of the fun. It's like that little nervous thing, the 5 hour conversations. That's all part of the fun. I want to get back to step number one because it's some of the deadly, no pun intended. What are some of the, I can't think of anything besides deadly or fatal things that we tell ourselves that could hamper it. But also, I'm wondering if, when you say decide what you want, which you said that was step number one, do you think it gets easier as you get older or more difficult to determine what you want?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think it depends on who you are.
Okay.
I think that people. I always say people grieve the way they live, and if clarity is not a big part of your psyche at all, once you've lost your husband or you decide you want to find a new partner, that clarity is a little bit harder. But for me, it was clear. And I think what I always have my clients do is just create a list, big on list, bullet point list. Where do you see yourself in the next year or 2 or 5? What vision do you have for yourself? Don't worry about how you're going to get it. Just ask yourself, what do I really want for my life, for myself? Does it in all kinds of categories too, not just finding a partner, but they have in my training I use this circle divided into 8 pieces, and I ask people to evaluate themselves on all 8 of those categories, which are, I'll tell you what they are: health, money, personal growth, fun, romance, friends, career, and your physical environment, your home. And once you can take a look at those 8 areas and start really addressing bullet point style, what do I want in this area? Where do I want to live? Who do I want to hang out with? All of those kinds of things. It becomes easier to create a game plan for your life. And before you start meeting somebody, it's step 2 is about becoming your best friend and becoming the best version of yourself. A lot of times people say, well, when I meet the man, then I'll find where I want to live and all those things. And I say,
I like that.
Do that in reverse.
I like that because after my second widowhood, it was like, okay, I am not happy, but I'm going to spend this time. I'll be sad, certainly, but I'm going to spend this time to see, can I do this by myself? And I could, but I don't want to. I prefer being with someone. And it's like, so, okay, so I'm going to spend this time getting myself into the best version that I can of myself. And I'm hoping whoever I'm coming up to is doing the same thing. And that's how it worked out. It was a 3-year gap. I didn't do it quite as quickly as you, but mazel tov, good for you. But it was like, I had this peacefulness about me. It was like, okay, I'm going to use this opportunity to go ahead and get myself in good shape here. So that's step number 2.
But that is step number 2.
Yeah.
And good for you, Laurie, for having that sense about what to do with your life.
Practice makes perfect. I don't want to practice anymore, but and the thing was that you become calmer about it, and I think you learn. You go, oh my God, I just had the best thing going. How can I ever find anything else? But I learned that each as we grow, I mean, as a coach, we grow, and all our experiences bring us along further. So it was like, okay, it's hard to believe when you're in the middle of it. So you keep telling us, what are your steps?
Well, that's number 2 about becoming the best version of yourself. And step 3, by the way, this is my own. There's nothing magical about the 7 steps that I created, but it's the result of decades of working with people and seeing what they need and what I needed.
And you
So,
are a shining example. So we're
well,
listening.
it wasn't my choosing, but you
I
can be
know.
the hand you're dealt. And there it is. Step 3 is finding peace around the loss of your spouse. I do have a background in grief counseling, and one of the things that I did when my first husband died was to write him a letter at the end of 1 year. I just wrote it. I don't even know why I wrote it. I just sat down and I needed some kind of peace. And I started, it wasn't really a letter. By the time I was done with it, it was a huge manuscript. I kept adding to it. And then I later learned in grief training that was a pretty therapeutic thing to do. But be able to address the silver lining to a person's death. We never really like to think about that, but always there are certain silver linings to being alone, being able to be more in control of your life. That's important to you, and have other kinds of choices. So they say, when I went through grief training, they say, you have moved forward when you can remember your late husband or wife, your late partner, and remember the good, remember the bad, and find peace around all of it.
Mm.
And that's a process. That certainly doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of widows and widowers, and I've seen it happen, even when they say, I'll never be able to find peace around this. But eventually, if you go through the process, you will. And you don't want to be stuck for the rest of your life, even if you're not interested in finding a new partner. But you still want to be able to find peace around any loss that you have, whether it's a child, a husband, no matter what it is, a house that burned down, no matter what it is. Finding peace and ultimate joy is the goal in life, from my perspective.
Well,
So,
let me ask you, if someone was going through that process right now, I know, can they still contact you at datingcoach.com, or is there another place they can go to find that?
go through the grieving process, you mean?
With you, or they feel they need a coach or someone to guide them?
Yes, well, absolutely. I do, I have a graduate degree in counseling, and although my coaching is not counseling as such, yes, my clientele are typically not people who are in the early stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
But once they feel like they are ready to turn that corner, even though they don't know how, even though the idea of dating again freaks them out, and P.S., I would have to say, without exception, every client that I have worked with who was a widow or widower had some degree of freak out with the idea of dating again. Yeah. And I'll share a tip around that. What I have them do, a lot of my clients are really successful in their careers, but the idea of dating, they revert to being a 16-year-old again. And they start thinking, oh my gosh, I would die to go out on a date again. And, all these negative kind of thoughts go into their head, like, will he like me? All this kind of stuff that you think about when you're a teenager. And I help my clients, all of them, reframe that whole dating experience by saying, think of themselves now as a CEO of their own universe, and they are interviewing interns. Oh. And I asked my clients, have you done any interviewing before? Of course, everybody's done interviewing. By the time they can be our age, certainly. Really? Interview the person who mows your lawn, somebody. And I said, how scary is that? They said, it's not even a little bit scary. I said, okay, we're reframing this. You interview interns, and the only objective you have is asking yourself, do I like this person? And if you don't like them, end of story. You don't have to worry about, does he like me? Because that's not even an issue. If you don't like him, move on. And so all of a sudden, people find that very liberating. Oh, well, I can do this interviewing thing. So yes, and that was a long way around that block. But yes, if people have been widowed or divorced for that matter, and feel like this is their time to perhaps meet somebody new, even though the idea may terrify them, yes, have them contact me for a free 30-minute breakthrough call. I'm doing that. There are no strings attached, and I love giving value.
I love the interview. The idea is brilliant. I love that. You're absolutely right. It's all about me and what do I want. And yes, it's drop that teenage stuff and Yeah, you've earned the right to interview and get who you want. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that tip. Great.
I didn't really coin that. One of my colleagues coined it, but I love it, and so I've taken it on.
Cool.
Nothing new under the sun.
No, that's what they say.
Yeah. So yeah, that is step 3 of my 7-step process of finding peace. Whether you've been through a divorce or no matter what it is, being able to really give language to it and address it, find the good and the bad of every situation, and find a way to move forward, because that's what life's all about. Yeah. Step 4, if you don't mind me going to the next step.
Oh,
Step
yeah,
4.
yeah, no, we're halfway there. I'm dying. I
Step
want to hear it all.
don't die. Step 4 is identifying the qualities that you want in a life partner. What are your must-haves? What are the deal breakers? And don't step over anything. But a lot of times when people are in the early stages of dating, I've heard them say things like, I've got a thing about bald men. He really needs to have some hair. Or I'm tall, and so I could never date anybody shorter than I. Things like that. And I have my clients take a really good look at that. Education. I'm highly educated, so I wouldn't want anybody with less than a master's degree. And the reason I have them take a look at that is because I always say, go for rich. Go for rich in all the ways that money can't buy.
Ooh.
The kindness, the character, integrity. Those are things a master's degree does not guarantee you. Any of that stuff, or a
No.
PhD, any of it. So sometimes people haven't thought about that. And hair, really? Hair? So, I mean, I understand how people have preferences when they first start dating, but I have them really lighten up and evaluate just how important. Where did that come from? And is that really a priority?
Be a little more open, absolutely. It's
Cast a
not time
wider
to close down. Yeah, it's not time to.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Cast a wider net, I say,
exactly.
and give all the guys, some consideration, because you never know what's really hiding behind that bald head. And then step 5, people say, where are the good guys? How do I find the good guys? Well, a lot of people will say to me, especially people my age, I would never do that internet dating thing, because all those guys lie and are all serial killers and, all these things like that. And, and there is some truth, not to the serial killer thing. I've been working with the internet for a long time. I have not met that serial killer, but I do know that men oftentimes, and women, have pictures that are a lot older. They don't quite look like that, or they describe themselves differently than they really are, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm a big believer in the internet dating. That's how I met my new husband. Is it my favorite way to meet people? Not necessarily. My favorite way to meet people is through others, where you have a testimonial. And step number 1 that I have my clients do is create a warm list of people that they know that they have a warm relationship with, like 50 people, and then become courageous and contact those people one by one and say, I have reached the point in my life where I would like to meet somebody wonderful. Who do you know? That's a big mouthful to get out for some people initially. And then I tell them, and most of their friends will say, I don't know anybody. The people I know are creeps. Who wouldn't be interested in those. Or they don't want to get involved. They're afraid that if they introduce you and it doesn't work out well, the friendship is gone. And I tell my clients to be really courageous and tell their friends, I'm only meeting somebody. We're only meeting for a cup of coffee or whatever, a brief meeting. And I promise I won't hold it against you if it doesn't work out well. It's just a meeting. So, and the other detail I tell my clients is, if a friend says, I don't know anybody, don't take no for an answer. Just say, not yet. And then ask them again and become the broken record and keep bringing it up.
And I'm a firm believer of, if you put it out there, it's going to come back. But if you keep it to yourself and go, oh my God, I wish I could find that. Who knows, but put it out there. We have like 4 minutes left. So
Oh my
to
goodness.
the last 2. Yeah.
Okay. The other part of this, because it's so important, is be mindful of your surroundings. When you go to the grocery store, take a look at, see who's out there, initiate conversations with people. Just become very courageous in that way. Number 6, master the first date. again, it's an interview. Don't think of it as a scary date where they're evaluating everything you do. And number 7, which is the most important, is stay the course. So many people get frustrated and then they quit, or they say, oh, these guys are creeps. There's nobody out there for me. Well, if I believed that, I would not be married today.
There you go. There you go. Stay the course. That's interesting. Oh, it's so bad to give females that information because it's not bad, but it's tricky because sometimes we tolerate too much and we're the nurturers and we forget about ourselves. So it's like, stay the course. But be kind to yourself at the same time, make sure you're taking care of yourself while you're staying the course with someone or without someone.
That's right. And that's why I said step 2 is become the best version of yourself and get really great clarity about what you want for your life. Step 1, because if a relationship isn't working, and so many times women stay in relationships way longer than they should. I have the arbitrary 6-month process where if at 6 months you don't feel like this is going in the direction it needs to go, time to move forward. I think 6 months is not, as long as you do your homework correctly and vet out your people and have the bigger conversations.
Yeah, and I think I think it was step 2, it's like become the best version of yourself. Know your boogaboos, know the things that are not necessarily rational, know the things that push your buttons. And it's like, maybe I don't need to get that upset about something this small. And I think that number 2 is a heavy duty one. I like that.
Well, they all are heavy duty, but they're all necessary steps about that. And having been remarried, I mean, I've only been married for 2 weeks now, in my 70s. If that, do I dare give my age, in my 70s? And how's the adjustment been? I married well. Let's just say I married somebody who was really compatible with me, but I did my homework in advance. If Jim were here, he'd probably roll his eyes because really, don't you ever run out of questions, Dan? No, but it's all part of the process. So I knew going in that I had chosen wisely, and I think he felt the same way, feels the same way.
All right. Well, you are the walking, talking example of practicing what you preach, and our coach. Practice what you coach. Yes. So tell people again, how can they get in touch with you? And where are you going to be? She's off her honeymoon, so she's available now.
I am available. The best way to get in touch with me if you're interested in finding true love again is with my website, widowsdatingcoach.com. There's a place that you can request a free breakthrough call. As I said before, there are no strings attached. It's my privilege to offer those. My goal for each call is for the person to walk away and say, wow, I never thought about it like that. I love hearing those words, and I think that is a win. And I also want to just leave people with the thought that if you really want somebody wonderful in your life, it's possible. It's possible. I didn't marry the last eligible man on the planet. There's plenty just like he is, and there's new ones cropping up all of the time. So maintain that level. Find out how to gain that confidence and that clarity and commitment to yourself.
Barbara Kenyon, you are a beacon of hope that I'm sure many, many people are needing right now. And I can just say, contact this woman. I've always enjoyed and learned from her. So thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Laurie.